Hi guys, I just wanted a quick go live. I know a lot of people from my Battle of the Hostess are starting to get their makeup, and so one of the first questions is, now what? What do I do? So let's go through setting up your palette, and then I want to show you a quick trick on how to also move those tins around. So depending on what size palette you got, most people will start with the palette 4, which means it fits 4 large tins or 8 small tins. Looks like this when you unwrap it. It is magnetic, which is super nice for these metal tins because they stick in there and they don't move around. So that's the palette 4. Some of us got the palette 8, which is the same as the palette 4 except it's 2 layers, right? So you have a top layer and a bottom layer. It's important to keep your creams and your powders separate. So I would highly suggest, if you got a palette 8 or a palette 12, that on one layer you keep all the creams, and on the other layer, if you have any powders, keep them separate. Otherwise the dust from the powders get into the creams and then it can get a little bit messy. So that's what I would suggest. If you got a palette 12, it's the same as a palette 4 or palette 8. It just fits 12 tins. I have one here, and you can see the palette 12. You line up your tins this way, as opposed to the palette 4 or 8. The tins will go vertical instead in those. So yeah, that's tip number 1. Keep creams and powder separate. So here's my palette 4. I'm going to set it up. This is how I prefer to set it up. I kind of think about it as like when you're painting, or if you think about like when you were a kid and you were color painting at all, you want to keep your light colors and your dark colors. I do a gradient so that as I am putting my finger in or using a brush in it, I'm not getting my light colors dark. So I always start with the lightest shade, which would be your brightening shade. So for me, that is linen. I am such a fair person. I'm on the lightest spectrum as far as Saint colors go. So I'm aura all over, and then I'm linen for underneath my eyes, and then I use, depending on the day, I might go for indigo to darken up my complexion a little bit, or I have henna or olive or shadow, and so I mix it up as far as the contours go. I don't think there's a lot of rules with those contours. Just depends on what you want. So I have linen here. When you get your tins, you need to take off the top. Your palettes will not close with the top inside it still. Again, these are magnetic, so when you put it in, it's going to click in and you'll be able to move it, and it's not going to move anywhere. I start with my lightest shade, which is my concealer, my under eye. So this is linen, and just click it in. See? Then I move on to my overall highlight, which for me is Aura. Take off the tin top, and I put that next to linen. Oh boy. Darn dogs. So you can see it's starting to shade gradually here. Then I go into my contour. So this is olive. Again, take off the top, snap it in. And then I do my lip and cheek. So with me right now, I have grapefruit. Take off the tin top and put it in. It's all stuck. It's not going to move anywhere. And that's your palette 4. If I had the palette 8, I would set it up the same way. If I had the palette 12, same thing, except I'm going to go vertical instead. And so you can see I have this is my concealer. Then I moved into my all over highlight, and then here is my contour. I have mango in here too. Someday I'll go over Magic Mango and what it does for me from day to day. And then I have my Black Friday eyeliner in here and one of the cream eyeshadows. So, but I do that gradient is what I'm trying to show you here too. So that's that. What do you do with these tin tops? You can recycle them because they're metal, but I would suggest you keep one of these. And the reason being is, you know, when you're first starting out, maybe you decide you want to move things around a little bit, or one of your tins is empty. These are in here super tight. They're not coming out. There's not a lot of wiggle room in them, but this top is perfect. So you can see how the side ends and then it angles up right here. I use that, and I'm going to angle the camera down because it's much easier for me to show you guys this using a top and using it on a table. So I take my top And what I do is I stick it between two of them, like that, okay? And then I bend up, and I use my other hand to pull out. Now I can move all of them without gouging. And you can see I keep using that top to go underneath, pop up. Use my other hand to pull up. It's that easy. So one more time to show you guys. I take that tin, that edge that doesn't have the sides attached to it. I go in between the two, and I just kind of like press it between the two. There's enough wiggle room there for that top to fit in. And then I just wedge it up. Pick it up with my hand, and out it comes. Okay? And that will allow me not to gouge the makeup. So press it in like that. Bend back. Use that other hand then to guide it out. Okay? So there's my tips. You got your makeup. That's how you set up your palette, or how I prefer to set up my palette. And again, my reasoning for going from my lightest shade to my darkest shade is I just don't want to contaminate my lightest shade, and that's for my under eye, so I don't want it to get dark at all. So that's what I do. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot a comment on here, and I will do my best to go back and answer those. Later this week, I will show the basic hack again. So yeah, thanks guys.